everyone. Today in class we did a chapter 6 review, and then I told them to take it home if they didn't finish it and to finish it, and then check it with this video. So this is me working through chapter 6 review. Okay, this is the first time I've done this video with my pictures app instead of my notes app, so hopefully it won't be too different. Okay, first of all, make sure that you're reading your instructions, okay? So number 1 says label each on the graph. So you want to label your x-axis. Remember, the horizontal is the x-axis. Then I want to label the y-axis, and so that's the vertical line. Next is the origin, and the origin is right where the two of them cross. Okay, that arrow doesn't really point to the right place, but right where the two cross. Okay, so there's the origin. So right here is the origin. Then you're going to label all 4 of the quadrants. So quadrant 1 starts here in the top right hand, and then we move counterclockwise. So this is quadrant 2, this is quadrant 3, and this is quadrant 4. Okay, so those are 7 things that you have to list. This is, number 1 is exactly like number 1 on the test. I don't know if I said that, but the review is exactly like the test, except for I just changed the numbers. So this is worth 7 points, and there's 7 things to label. So if you label all of them, you get your 7 points. If you label some of them wrong, you might get some points taken off. Okay, the next part is graph and label each point. So for 2, 3, and 4, you're going to graph them on this graph right here. So A is -2, 5. So the -2 is your x, and the y is the second number. So here's my x. Remember, we labeled them on the other one. And so I'm going to go to -2. So this is -1 and this is -2. So I'm going to go to -2, and then I'm going to go up to 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So -2, 5 is right here. And then I'm going to label it A, because it says graph and label. If you don't label, you're going to get points taken off. So that's A. Okay, the next one, 0, 4. The easiest way to do the ones with zeros is say, where is my non-zero number? So my 4 is in the Y part of this, right? This is X. The second one is Y. And so that means that it's going to be on the Y axis. So that's going to be right here at 4 on the y-axis. So that's B. I'm going to label it B. Okay, and then the next one, 1, -3. I'm going to go to the x is 1. Remember, this is 1. So I go over to 1, and then I go down to -3. So this is -1, -2, -3. So this is 1, -3. So that's going to be C. So you should have labeled A, B, C. That's what it should look like on your graph. If you have them in a different location, that means you need to practice graphing and labeling each point. And you will get more of that practice on your review in the book that's for homework. Okay, this was classwork for those of you who were absent. This worksheet was classwork. Most people finished it. There were a few people who didn't. And then they have review in the book also for homework. Okay, next part says identify each point on the graph. So for D, we're going to go over here and we're going to plot what point it is. So remember, we want an ordered pair here. So I'm going to, here's my D right here, right? So I'm going to look where is the X. So this is the X right here, right? So we're going to say, well, where is it on the X? It's -2, so that's going to be our first number. And then where is it on the Y is our second number, so that's 4. Okay, that one's pretty easy. Let's go to E. Okay, so E, we're going to look at the X first. This is the X. So what number is that? Well, we have -1, -2, -3, -4, -5. So that one's -6. So I'm going to put -6 as my X. And then I look across to see where it is on the Y-axis, right? So it's at -3 on the Y-axis. Okay, and then the last one, F. Now these are always harder when they're on an X or on a Y axis, but it's really easy to remember which one is it, what it is. So find the number. This is at 2. It's on the X axis, so that 2 goes in the X spot, right? This is X and Y. And if it's on one of the axis, if it's on the X axis or on the Y axis, then your other number is 0. So that was on the X axis. F was on the X axis. So I put it in the X spot, the 2 in the X spot, and then the 0 goes in the other one. Okay, I had lots of questions. Oh, that was my watch talking. I had lots of questions about number 8 through 10. This was done in, I think it was lesson 6.2. And so it's been a while since we did that lesson, so some of y'all have forgotten. But domain is the X and range is the Y. Okay, so let's start by just giving domain and range for each one. And then we'll talk about this last part over here after we finish doing domain and range. So if the domain is X, then that means all these X's, 1, -3, and 7 are my domain. So this is the way you write it, 1, -3, 7. You could also put them in order from least to greatest, but I don't take off points for either one. And then my range, the R right here, is the Y. So remember, when you're doing an ordered pair, it's X, Y, right? So I have 2, 4, and 0. So when I write my range, I'm going to write 2, 4, and 0. Okay, so we're going to do that for each one of these for number 9 and number 10. The domain for 9 is 2 and 4. Notice that on this one, 2 is written twice, but we only write it once in our domain. We're not going to say it has 2, 2, 4. It's just 2 and 4. And this was the 4. And then my range is going to be all these Y's, 3, 7, 0. Okay, now we're going to switch to number 10. So my domain is my X's, so that's -1, 2, and 3. And my range is my Y's, so I have 3, -9, and another 3. So I only write that 3 once, and then I write down the -9. I don't write down 3, -9, 3. I write it down just once. If you write it twice, I'm going to take off a point. Okay, next part over here is which ones of these are functions. So in the past, y'all have learned how to do functions on a graph where you do a vertical line test, but this one doesn't have that. So the way that you tell if something is a function is if it has 2 x's that are the same, it is not a function. So if I look over here, all my x's are different. And so this is a function, yes. But on this one, these 2 are the same. They both have 2's over here. And so this is not a function. So if you have 2 of the same x's, not y's, x's, then it's a no. Okay, this number 10, this is my x's here, and I have -1, 2, and 3. Those are all different, so my answer is yes. Now notice I have 2 y's that are the same, this one and this one, but y's don't matter for functions. The functions are for your your x. Okay, that's it for this page. So the first page should not have taken you very long. It shouldn't take you very long on the test, which is on Thursday. But here's all my answers. So you could go through and check it and see if you got them all right. Okay. Just remember up here that you had to graph them up here if you're just fast forwarding to check this. Okay. And if you didn't understand one, go back and rewind it. Go back in your book and look at the section, right? Most of this is in 6.1 and 6.2 on this page. And if you still don't understand, you can go back and watch my videos on those sections. Okay, now we're going to, let's see if I can figure out how to do this. Okay, we're going to move on to the next one. The next page. Oops. Okay, and now we're going to start with find the slope of the line passing through the given points. So almost everybody in class can tell me what the slope formula is. Y'all did good on that. M equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. The problem is y'all can say that, and you know what it is, but then once I tell you to find the slope, you make mistakes in your calculations, and you can't make mistakes in your calculations. So let's talk about the first one. I'm going to do the work underneath it so that I can put the answer in the blank. So m equals, okay, when this says y2, y1, here's what all these numbers are. This is x1, y1. Because remember, the first number is your x, and the second number is your y. Okay, the next point is x2, y2. So now I know all my x1s, y1s, x2s, y2s. So now I can put this into this slope formula. So y2 minus y1 is what I do on top. So here's y2 and here's y1. So I go 0 minus 3. Then on the bottom, I'm going to do x2 and x1. So I have 9 minus 7. And now I just do the calculations. 0 minus 3 is negative 3. And 9 minus 7 is 2. And that is my slope. So right here, negative 3 halves is my slope. Now, if you put positive 3, because you said, oh, 0 minus 3 is 3, then you're going to get your slope wrong. It's not just points taken off because you didn't put a negative sign. It's wrong. You can't have this be positive. So make sure that if you don't know how to do your integers, that you are using a calculator. Okay, number 12. Once again, we're going to use the same formula. We're going to do y2 minus y1. So that's 8 minus negative 2. And then we're going to do x2 minus x1. So that's over 3 minus 5. So if you don't know how to do these, do them on your calculator. Put in 8 minus negative 2. That gives you 10. 3 minus 5 gives you negative 2. And then we're going to simplify that. If you leave it in that form, 10 over negative 2, you're going to get points taken off. So 10 over negative 2 simplifies to just negative 5, and that's what my slope is, negative 5. Okay, that's finding slope. You need to know how to do that. We're also going to find slope down here, number 16, but we'll get to that in a minute. Okay, on number 13 and 14, it says place each equation in slope-intercept form, then give the slope and the y-intercept. So these are worth 5 points each. So this part is 3 points, and this is 1 point and 1 point. So that's 5 points each. So slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b. It must be in that form. And then we'll talk about how to find, well, here's the slope. And here's the y-intercept once you get it into that form. So on this first one, I want to get it into y equals mx plus b. So that means I want this y to stay here by itself. So I'm going to subtract 3x from both sides. And that gives me y equals, now see what I have left over here? I want to make sure that I put it in this form. So the one with the x has to come first, and then the other one. So I'm going to do negative 3x minus 4. And that's my slope-intercept form. So that's checking off this part right here, slope-intercept form. But I still need to say what the slope is and what the y-intercept is. So m equals this number, the one in front, right here, in front of the x. So my slope, or my m, is negative 3. And then my y-intercept is the second part of the equation, which is this part right here. But this one is minus 4 instead of plus, so that minus turns into a negative 4. So there are my other two answers. So this part is going to be worth 3 points, and these parts are going to be worth 1 point each. And it will be the same on your test. Also, if you do one of them, if you get the slope-intercept form wrong right here, then you're not going to get the slope and the y-intercept form right. So then it's all going to be wrong. Okay, number 14, just moving along. We're going to put this into the same slope-intercept form. So I need y by itself. So I'm going to move the 6x over to the other side. And we do that by minusing 6x. So these are gone, and I have 3y equals negative 6x plus 12. Okay, I put the x first because that's how they want it in the slope-intercept form. And now I'm going to divide by 3 on all terms. Each term has to be divided by 3. So y equals negative 2x plus 4. And that is my equation, but now I need to write the slope and the y-intercept. So the slope is always this number in front of the x. Do not include the x or you will get it wrong. Don't put negative 2x, that's wrong. You need to just put negative 2. And the y-intercept is the last number, b. So this is my equation, which is worth 3 points. And then each the slope and the y-intercept are both worth 1 point. Okay, next section, we are going to find the equation of the line, which is kind of what we did here. Well, they already had the equation on 13 and 14. We just changed it into slope-intercept form. Now they're going to give us some other things and tell us to find the slope. And they want it in slope-intercept form again. So remember, that's y equals mx plus b. Everybody should have that memorized. That shouldn't be a problem for anybody. Okay, number 15, they give you the slope and the y-intercept. So this is the easiest problem, probably the easiest problem on the test. Remember, we want to put it into this form. So we're just going to put the m here and the b here. So my answer is y equals 2x plus 2/3. So the m goes here in front of the x and the 2/3 go here. And that's the answer. Easiest problem on the test, and I will still probably have kids get it wrong. Some kids might forget to put the x. Okay, that x has to go there or else it's wrong. So check your work and make sure that you don't forget that. Okay, that's it for that one. Number 16, we're going to use, we have 2 points. And remember, the instructions for both 15 and 16 say, find the equation of the line and write it in slope-intercept form. So my equation is first, before I can make an equation, I need to find the slope. So remember up here where I said, hey, in a minute, all this slope stuff, you're going to have to do down here in 16. Well, now we're doing it down in 16. So we're going to do slope equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So remember, this x1, y1, x2, y2. Okay, so this is negative 6 over 2, and negative 6 over 2 is negative 3. Okay, that's my slope, or my m. And now I know my slope, but over here I knew my slope and my y-intercept, but now I don't know that y-intercept. So instead of using just the slope-intercept form, I'm going to write it using point slope form. So point slope form looks like this. I'm going to write it over here. Y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. So what I'm going to be filling in is this y1, the m, and the x1. So I know the m, right? We just figured it out. It's negative 3. And then my x1 and my y1 are these points up here. Okay, so here's my problem. Y minus 2 equals negative 3 times x minus 1. So where did I get all these numbers? Okay, I'm going to show you. This 2 came from here because that's y1. See, it says y1. The negative 3 came from here because that's my slope. And then this 1 came from here. That's my x1. Okay, we did a whole bunch of these, so this should not be anything new. Okay, let's solve this problem for y. So I'm going to have y minus 2 equals, and now I'm going to do distributive property. So I get negative 3x plus 3. Okay, and now I need to add 2 on both sides because I'm trying to get y by itself. So that's y equals negative 3x plus 5. And that's your answer for number 16. This is number 16. Okay, I know it's looking a little bit crazy on here. Okay, last 4 are graphing, and this is probably where I've seen the most problems, and all of this chapter is on graphing, and you will need to know how to graph in chapter 7. So this is not going away. You have to learn how to graph. Okay, it says graph each equation or inequality. It doesn't say how to do it. So I'm going to do it a couple of different ways. I'm going to start out on number 17, graphing with a T-chart, okay? So here's my T-chart, and T-charts means I'm going to pick some numbers for here, and then I'm going to solve it, okay? Now I want to remember how many numbers I can get onto my graph. So that's 7 for Y, and is it also 7? Yep, and 7 for X's. So I don't want to go over 7 when I'm trying to pick out my numbers. So like I don't want to pick 10 for X because that's not on my graph. Okay, so instead I'm going to pick let's say I want 8 for X. Okay, oh, I'm sorry. Why did I pick 8? That's too big. Okay, let's say 6. If I have 6 for X, then I want to minus a -4 to make 10. So this number is what this part should be. So what would Y have to equal? Y is going to have to equal -2. Okay, so then I could graph 6, -2, and there's my first point. Now, on my next point, I'm going to choose 4 for X. So if this is 4, then that means this needs to be -6 for it to equal 10. So that means Y has to be -3. So now I'm at 4, 1, 2, 3, -3. Okay, and then, oh, I forgot to bring my ruler in. So I'm going to kind of do a whole bunch of extra dots. And then I'm going to try to make this go straight. Let's see. Okay, that's pretty straight. Okay, remember when you draw a line, you need arrows at the end, and it needs to go all the way through the graph, or you're going to get points taken off of your graph. Okay. Let's talk about another way that I could have done this problem. Instead of making a T-chart, I could have solved for Y. So that would mean I need to minus X on both sides. I get -2Y equals -X plus 10. Then I divide by -2. And that gives me Y equals 1/2 X minus 5. So you should be able to graph this by using the slope of 1/2 and the y-intercept of -5. So if you look down here, here's my y-intercept of -5, 1, 2, 3, 4, -5. And then my slope is 1/2. So I would go up 1 and then over 2. And that would be my second point. And see how it makes the same line no matter which way you do it. As long as you're doing it correctly and not making any mistakes with your positive and negative numbers, then you will get the same line whether you do it by T-chart or do it with the slope-intercept form. Okay, number 18, right here, it's kind of in the middle of a whole bunch of numbers. It's already in slope-intercept form, so I'm not going to do a T-chart for this one, even though I could, and it would probably be pretty easy to do it with a T-chart. I think it's easier to just do slope-intercept form. So this is my y-intercept, which means on the y-axis, I'm going to go to the number 2 and put a dot. Okay, because this is 2. Now my slope is 3 over 1. If it just shows a whole number, remember it's over 1. So I'm going to do slope means rise over run. So I'm going to go up 3, 1, 2, 3, and then I'm going to go to the right 1. And I'm going to the right because I want this to be a positive slope. And if it was to the left, then it would be a negative slope. Okay, so 1, 2, 3. Now I'm going to go just backwards really quick because I don't have a ruler. Trying to get my line as straight as possible. See if that will kind of straighten out. Okay, and there's my line for that one. So check those two lines on your review and see if they are in the right places. And the way to check that is to check the y-intercept. Make sure that's at the right place. Make sure it's going to the right or left correctly, and that it's basically in about the same position as these are. Okay, the last two on this worksheet are inequalities. Okay, so here we're going to graph this inequality first, And when you do your first graph, you're just the line, you're just looking like if it had said y equals 2x plus minus 11. I'm sorry, y equals 2x minus 3. So I'm just saying, hey, how do I graph it if it was an equal sign? So same way, my y-intercept is negative 3. So I go down here to negative 3 on the y-axis and put a dot. Then my slope is 2 over 1. So I go up 2. And because it's positive, I'm going to go to the right one. So I'm going to do that a whole bunch of times. Up 2 over 1. Up 2 over 1. Okay? And I'm doing that so that I can make sure that my line is very straight. Okay, so here's my line. That was bad. Let's redo that. There's my line. And then I'm going to draw arrows on it. And that's how I did that wrong. Let me erase that line. Because in an inequality, remember, we're looking for a solid or dashed line. And this is going to tell you that. So if it's less than or greater than, it's going to be a dashed line. So I'm going to go back over here and redraw my line as a dashed line instead of a solid line. And then I'm going to shade up below because this is a less than. So less than means below. So that will be underneath the line is right here. Okay? And so that's one of our inequalities. Now let's do this other inequality over here. I am going to change this whole thing to slope-intercept form. So as I'm doing that, and you want to do that, everything, any inequality should be in slope-intercept form. You cannot know which side to shade unless it's like that. You cannot do a T-chart. Okay, so I've got minus 4x on both sides. And I get 2y is greater than or equal to negative 4x plus 6. So then I'm going to divide by 2 on everything. Everything gets divided by 2. So that means this is y is greater than or equal to negative 2x plus 3. And now I'm going to graph it. So I go to my y-intercept first. That's at 3. My slope is negative 2. So that means I'm going to go up 2 and to the left 1. Up 2 and to the left 1. Then I could go down 2 and to the right 1. So here is going to be my line. Then I ask myself before I draw it, is it solid or dashed? Well, if it has the equal sign under it, like this one does, that means it's a solid line. So let's see if I can get this. Oh, that was a super crooked line. This thing lets me kind of hold on to it and it makes it straight. That's a little crooked too, but since I don't have a ruler, I'm going to say it's okay, but yours would not be because you will have a ruler. Okay, so it's a solid line because it's also equal to, and now we need to decide, are we shading above or below? Well, this is greater than, so we're going to shade above. Remember, if for any reason in here, if you divide it by negative, then you would also need to flip that sign. Okay, that's it. That's exactly what your test is over. Is exactly what I just did on here. Just different numbers are going to be on there, different slopes. And so if you can do this review, then you will be able to do the test. And that's it for this. Make sure that if you didn't understand something, that you can go back and look at the videos for that one, because I'll give more examples about it. You could look it up on something like Khan Academy if my instructions are not making sense, but you need to be able to do every single part of this test in order to pass your test for Chapter 6. Okay, that's it.